Just open it up so I can call you in it, and you kind of start prepping everything, giving out credentials. Don't worry, can't nobody come in unless we approve it.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kerry Smalley. To my right, Jerome Bivens. To my left,
Right. Contacts.
Oh, Troy, we gotta do this again.
That's fine. So as long as you don't have to do it in July. If so, you'll be doing it remotely. You logging in under two names?
Not me.
I got two Jerome Bivens.
I'm on my iPad.
Oh,
It popped up on my phone. I ain't logged in.
so is it allowing you to come in from your?
It says please wait for meeting post will let you in soon.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. I don't know if your device might just be up too high.
Turn it down.
Let's see now.
Yeah.
Oh, my mic is on.
Do we still get started or how do we do it?
Mayor, I'm just texting people now because they should, everyone received their stuff, so they knew it was a meeting today. I can start calling people.
Okay, I see we got Councilman Shaw on,
Okay,
Councilwoman Washington, and Mayor Pro Tem Howard.
and yourself,
Yes.
you do constitute as part of a quorum.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yep, I understand that. And I know that we have our engineer on tonight.
You can get started. You have 4 people. And
Okay,
I will start, you know, as you're going, I'll start contacting the other ones as well.
okay. I think for the sake of time, we get going. Mr. Bivens, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council, to the viewing audience. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight for a special council meeting, as we will be talking about the sewer CSO outfall elimination of combined sewers this evening. And this to give you some definitions. Combined sewer means that the sanitary sewer, which is connected to your house, and the storm sewer are connected together. Therefore, under federal regulation and state regulations, when we begin to do projects, it is requested and required that we separate the 2 systems so they can function on their own. So this evening, we're going to talk to you, Ms. Carrie Lloyd Smiley, our engineer from Benish, is going to talk to you about a project that we're undertaking, and we've asked the state for assistance in the sum of $32 million, with the first phase being funded for $6 million. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Carrie Lloyd Smiley, our engineer from Alfred Benish. And we would appreciate if you hold your questions to the end of the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for coming out on an evening like tonight. Besides attending I got some feedback going here. In addition to your regular council meeting and coming out to join us to talk about sewage, I know that's not a really exciting topic, but it is something that the city needs to address. And it's been a long-term issue between the city and as well as the county for some of the sewer flows in the areas that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get started. Okay, so as Jerome mentioned, we're going to talk about the elimination of combined sewer overflows. Jerome explained to you that a combined sewer has both stormwater and sanitary sewer in it. And there are some locations in the city where there are overflows that were designed as part of the system, and we want to eliminate those. And I'll go into more detail about that. If I can get my screen to, there we go. Oops. So the 3 goals associated with today and the project, one is to eliminate these CSOs that I mentioned, and I'll explain, again, I'll explain what those are and why we want to eliminate them. And then also we want to reduce the flow that the city of Inkster deposits into Wayne County's interceptors, and I'll explain that as well. The other purpose of today is for funding. Today is a public hearing that is required to acquire clean water state revolving funds. So the goal is to have this project paid for by low interest loans from the state. So I'm going to just a quick summary of where we're going to talk about. I'm going to give you background on where we are today and how we got there, the need for the project, how we analyzed it, the results of our analysis, and the couple of alternatives that we came up with. And then the state requires us to cover environmental impacts as part of this submittal to them to request funding. I'll go over the funding briefly and also the schedule. So as you know, and as Jerome explained, the city has a network of sewer pipelines. This shows them in general throughout the city. We have both sanitary, which only contains wastewater. We have storm drains, which are shown in gold. The sanitary are shown in green. The storm only contains stormwater, and then the combined system, which is shown in purple. All of this network is interconnected and deposits all of the wastewater into two interceptors that run through the middle of the city. Those interceptors are owned and operated by Wayne County, and we currently have an agreement for both of them. The interceptors convey all of this flow to GLEWA's wastewater facility, or Water Resources Recovery Facility, which is the wastewater facility that treats the water and then releases it into the Detroit River. The two interceptors, as I mentioned, are along Michigan Avenue and the lower branch of the Rouge River. The blue one shown here is along the lower branch of the Rouge River, and it's referred to as a lower Rouge interceptor. It's a 60-inch diameter main or interceptor. And the other one shown in purple is an egg-shaped interceptor located in Michigan Avenue, generally speaking. It's about 36 inches wide by a couple of feet in height.
Carrie, can you hold right there for a second, Carrie?
Wayne County, for the interceptor shown in blue, states that there's a maximum flow that the city of Inkster is allowed, and it's a flow rate. And occasionally during high rainfall periods, the city exceeds that rate. And so the county is looking to Inkster to reduce that rate, as well as the state has also requested that the city reduce that rate.
Carrie, can you pause right there for a second for me, please?
So just
Carrie.
to give you a little more background, the city experienced
Carrie?
building boom, or expanded the city
Hey, Carrie, can you hear Mayor Wimberly?
in the 40s through the 60s.
I don't think she can.
And during
I
that
think she got her volume down.
the sewer was built then.
Is anybody at
when
City Hall
sewers
that can
were
walk out and
built,
tell her?
I'm about to call Jerome.
I'm about to let her know now.
domestic and industrial
Yeah,
brick
The
waste.
business in Detroit.
And then
Thank you.
during heavy rainfalls, when the rain increased, or during large snow melts. Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries, Carrie.
Okay.
We appreciate that. This is a special meeting, so we do need to call roll and call the meeting to order. So we apologize for that being out of place, but we want to make sure that we're in
I put my volume down so
compliance, in compliance with the Public Meeting Act. So City Clerk, if you could, at this
Sure.
time, I call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Okay.
Oh.
Mayor Wimberly,
Here reporting from my home in Inkster, Michigan.
Mayor Pro Tem Howard,
Yes, in my home in Inkster.
Councilwoman Watley. I'm still trying to reach her. Councilman Williams. He should be on shortly. Councilwoman Washington,
In my home in the city of Inkster.
Councilman Chisholm,
Here reporting live from my home, Inkster, Michigan, County of Wayne.
and Councilman Shaw.
Yes, here in the city of Inkster.
Mayor, we have 5 present tonight, and we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you, City Clerk and City Council. After this presentation and questions, we do have a resolution that we will be asked to act on. So that's why we needed to call it to order. So thank you. Okay, Carrie, continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted to describe briefly how the city was developed and explain that a lot of the sewers were built in the 40s through the 60s. During that time, there was a boom. And also during that time, the way the sewers were designed were for regular flows from wastewater and industrial waste, as well as an average storm that you would experience in a 10-year period. So when you had larger storms, the system was designed to export that overloaded capacity through outfalls. And the outfalls were usually along bodies of water. In the case of Inkster, that's the lower Rouge River. So the network was designed with 23 CSOs, or combined sewer overflows. So when it reached capacity, all 23 of these overflow points would flow into the Detroit River, and that included sanitary sewer as well as storm sewer, sewerage. Since that time, through the Clean Water Act and people wanting to clean up their environment, those CSOs have been reduced. 8 of them were eliminated and 12 were rerouted so that they could get treated at the retention treatment basins located on Middle Belt north of Michigan Avenue, and also there's one on Inkster north of Michigan Avenue. So that water goes there after a big rain. It sits and gets treated, and then after a lot of the flow from the big rain event subsides, it's released into the Lower Rouge River, so it doesn't have as great of an impact on it. So of the 23 original CSOs, there are 3 remaining. They're referred to as the Eastern Outfalls. They're shown here on this map. They're along Beach Daily. The L41 and the 11 CSO locations are shared with the Dearborn Heights, with the city of Dearborn Heights. They also contribute to that flow. Right, and also the CSO number 10. When on a regular day, the flow that flows by these outfalls, it goes right to the interceptors. On a day when you get a high rain impact or impacts from a high rainfall, then at these locations, sewerage overflows out of the pipe into another pipe that's directed to the Rouge River. And that's mainly down an 84-inch main located down Meadowdale. I also want to mention the Carlisle and the Sylvia pumps. They're also in the study area where all of the sewage is taken from and directed to the interceptors. And then in the case of a big rainfall event, that overage of flow is directed to the Rouge River. So just to specify, there's a couple of needs for this project. Obviously, one is water quality issues. Raw sewage into open bodies of water is, of course, a water quality issue. In addition to that, there's also an administrative consent order. In 1988, the state, or EGLE, now it's referred to as, requested or ordered the city of Inkster to reduce the amount of flow that goes into the interceptors by separating out the storm and directing that storm flow somewhere else. So they're not treating storm flow to reduce energy costs. And then also to either treat or eliminate the CSOs so that raw sewage wasn't going into open bodies of water. So we can either eliminate those, or those can also be directed to these retention treatment basins that exist here now. We also took a look at projected needs. We noticed that in areas of the city that the capacity of the sewer pipelines were inadequate. So from that perspective, there just needs to be an upgrade to some of those facilities. And then as part of this requirement to obtain funding from the state, we need to take a look at what the situation is. This project was never done, or no improvements were made, excuse me, to the city. And of course, that results in what is happening today, which is the city will continue to discharge raw sewage to the Rouge River if we don't take care of it. So one of the ways that we performed a system analysis, and the 2 main tasks associated with that were flow monitoring of the existing flows in those pipelines and those sewer pipelines, and then also creating a model that will simulate how those flows are directed throughout the network. So shown here are locations where flow monitors were put in. We were able to catch only 1 rainfall event, but that gave us enough information to take a look at the model. Once we created the model from field visits, identifying manholes and the distance between manholes and the sizes of the pipe and the elevation, the difference in each end of the pipe, we created the network and then used that flow information to calibrate the model and have the model run as close to what is happening based on that flow information as possible. Then we took the model and ran a few different scenarios. We looked at it with current conditions during dry weather, and then also during wet weather. And then we took a look at improving some of the conditions. So before I go through the improvements to the conditions, I just wanted to mention 3 things that we were able to determine using the model. We identified that there were certain areas kind of in the Yale, Notre Dame area and Princess to, I guess, maybe John Daly. There were sewers in those locations that were undersized and meeting capacity with just dry weather flows. We were also able to identify the ranges of the flows at each of the CSOs where they start actually discharging to the river. And that was helpful in sizing pipes both downstream and upstream of those locations. As I mentioned before, when the CSOs overflow, they go into a large main that's located in Meadowdale. And we identified the fact that that pipeline was being underutilized and thought it might be better utilized if we were able to separate some of the storm from the sanitary and then send the storm water down that pipeline to the creek so that we would only be discharging stormwater instead of a combination of storm and sanitary sewer. So that's what we took a look at. We came up with 2 alternatives. They're very similar. Here's one of them. We divided them into 4 phases. Phase 1 and 2 are similar or the same, identical for both options. These options, number 1, separate storm from the combined sewers so that instead of one pipeline with sanitary and storm, you now have duplicate pipelines or 2 pipelines and you get storm in one and sanitary in the other. By doing that, we're able to reduce the sanitary flows that go to the interceptors and reroute those storm flows into that large 84-inch pipe that I just mentioned so that they can be discharged into the creek. Then when it reduces the amount of flow to the interceptor, but during wet weather events, there still is some overflow from those 3 CSOs. But we found that we would be able to redirect those flows to the retention basins, the retention treatment basins at Inkster. Because by taking out some of the flows in enough locations, we're not only reducing the combined flow to the interceptor, we're also reducing the combined flow to the retention treatment basin. So that frees up some capacity so that we can send combined sewer flow there when those 3 CSOs overflow. So both of these improvements, option 1 and 2, reduce the flow to the interceptor, eliminate CSO basins, and reroute combined flows to the retention basins at Inkster. The difference between the 2 options, and I'll go to the next slide, is that alternative 2 includes additional pipelines that would separate storm and sanitary and direct some more of the wet weather event to the creek or the river, the Rouge River, and free up a little more retention or a little more capacity at the retention basin located at Inkster and Michigan Avenue. So the other big difference between these 2 alternatives is, of course, the cost. Both options achieve the same objectives. Option 2 is about $4 million more expensive because we're separating additional combined sewer into sanitary and storm. So you're talking about extra pipelines. We have selected, of course, the lower cost option because both options address all of the objectives. We feel spending less money is more prudent for the city to use that option instead of the more costly one. So as part of this document that we need to send to the state, we need to consider all the environmental issues. They're all listed here. In general, we were able to go to websites and get most of the information we needed, and then the state will follow up on any actual impacts. We found that there would be no impacts with the exception of major surface waters. We felt that with this project, we'd actually be improving the condition of the major surface waters by reducing the amount of sewage that would be discharged on from time to time. It would be eliminated, essentially eliminated in the future. So those were long-term impacts. We also looked at short-term impacts, and most of those impacts are associated with construction. We needed to address those. So here are the mitigations for the short-term impacts to the city and to the study area in general. Noise, of course, dust, traffic, soil erosion, sedimentation control, and odors. Odors may or may not be something that we have to deal with, but if we do have to deal with it, it will basically be pumps that need to pump sewage around areas where we're working on pipelines that can't take the capacity. We would make sure that we would look at, we'd be careful about where we would locate those, try to locate them away from residential areas if we could, and possibly screen them if it's necessary and if it would help with the odor. Noise, there's a city ordinance and we would adhere to that. That limits the hours of construction. I'm sure Mr. Bivens would be very careful about authorizing anything outside those hours. Then there's also dust. Typically there's regular street sweeping. In addition to that, if it really got bad, we could implement some water spraying to try to keep some of the material that's airborne from doing so. Then as far as traffic, construction always comes with traffic issues. We would do our best to detour routes and make sure that those were carefully planned and provide advance notification to residents and people that travel through the areas. And then soil erosion and sedimentation control, there is a permit that the city would need to obtain from the county to make sure that material from the site doesn't escape through during rain events or during windy days. And items like covering your stockpiles and implementing fences so that you can't have water take runoff that would include the material and end up in catch basins. There would be filters that we could put on catch basins. So funding, this is part, we are requesting clean water state revolving funds. There was over $290 million that was issued by that the state is providing to communities who turn in this information like we're doing today, so that they can obtain a loan to complete projects that would improve the environment through clean water measures. So this loan that we're applying for is for 2022. So the $32 million project that we were looking at the loan would apply to phase one of that project, which is a $6 million portion of it. We don't know what the interest rate for the loan would be until we actually get it. But for reference, I've included the low or the 2021 interest rate loans for the different terms. The loan would be repaid with water and sewer fees. I know everyone wants to keep their water and sewer fees down. Obtaining a loan would do that. It wouldn't prevent your water fees from going up, but certainly at a lower rate. It would go up at a lower rate with a loan like this. The schedule right now is that once we finish this meeting and I answer all the questions, we include answers to all those questions, as well as some questions that we received from the state after they reviewed the document. And also a transcription of this meeting goes into that document, and then we turn it in on June 1st to the state or EGLE. Then we begin design when the fiscal year starts in July. And there would be some field work. So that long period between July and April when we think we would be done would include field work, which would hopefully go quickly, but we've allotted extra time in case we needed to do more investigations. Then in the spring, we would bid it and begin construction shortly after that. So that concludes my presentation and all the information I have. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi, Carrie,
Hello.
through the chair. Once we start this project and when it ends, if we have a heavy storm like we have had in the past, where we've had a lot of flooding, would that would help the CFO outfall if we separate those? Is that what she's saying?
Yeah, we believe it would. One of the other suggestions was to implement, and I know I talked to Jerome, he said that they have already had an effort to try to get people to take their home drainage and take it out of the sewers and have it run off as sheet flow from their facilities, so it can definitely get into the storm drains and not go right into the sanitary sewers. But we believe that another effort to do that would help. So anything that would reduce the flows in the sanitary or combined is going to help with those backups that end up in people's basements.
Oh, okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions for or comments from council?
Yes, Mr. Chair. I don't know if they had any type of calculation on those water and sewage fees. Is there any preliminary or any standard right now?
We wanted to know if we had any preliminary estimates on the impacts to water and sewer fees. That's a good question.
Councilman, to Mayor and Council of the Public, Plant Moran is currently working on the water rates for this year, which this project would be part of those increase of water rates. So I couldn't answer that question right now because they're putting it together to present to Mayor and Council.
Hold on.
Oh, shit.
You give me a stimulus at the bottom.
Hey, if you all are at City Hall together, you might have to mute yourself if you're not talking, because being in that same capacity is gonna be a lot of feedback.
Carrie's muted. Turn your volume down, thank you. Okay, can you hear me now, Councilman Chisholm?
Yes, we can hear you. You good and clear.
Okay. Did I answer your question, Councilman Shaw?
Yeah, you said that it was going to be added up with this, the next budget that we have, is what you
Yeah.
said.
So in the process of preparing this and sending it to the state, they required us in this meeting to show that if we get this loan, how we would pay it back through the water rates. But we are pursuing the forgiveness, and we just can't bank our hat on that we will be forgiven. If you know, it's not 90% chance that we will get this money and not have to pay it back. But they require us to show the water customers that if we get this loan, if we approve for this loan, that at that interest rate, it will go into the water rates to cover that loan for the next
20
several years.
Yeah.
You know, as we begin to do this. And Councilman Shaw, you was on council
Yeah, I was about to say
previously.
that.
Yeah, you was on council previously, along with the mayor when he was on council. And I think Sergeant Wiley's familiar, Councilperson Wiley's familiar with this. And I think Councilman Chisholm and Mayor Pro Tem Howard, when we talked about the eastern outfalls and how I was getting that delayed because the state wanted us to build a $22 million another CSO basin. We would have 3.
Yeah.
This is beginning to address that issue on a smaller scale, but on a larger scale, because now we're addressing the whole city, just not the eastern outfall. As we begin, like the project on Avondale and different areas where we're going to be doing projects, we would begin to decombine the sewers, which would meet the state regulatory violations. Action level we received in 2008. So it's on a larger scale, but yet it's on a smaller scale than just building another outfall CSO basin. So now I'm trying to instead of just doing one section of the city, I'm trying to decombine the whole city. So with this money, we would begin to look at the worst areas and start there in phase one. And we have a general idea, once we begin to do the design, how we would begin to attack that and approach that issue. So yeah, it's the same that we talked about in 2008, but it's just on a different scale versus building that one outfall. I'd rather address the whole city.
Okay, so it's not going, so what you're saying is that you're going to build another CSO basin?
No, sir, I won't build another CSO basin.
Okay, because I remember being on council at the time, and our mayor pro tem was at the time, Hendricks was really adamant about us having 3 already in a city of this size. So, I mean, are we trying to eliminate one, or there's no chance of doing anything like that?
No, what we're trying to do is correct the issue on a larger scale in the hopes of eliminating that third outfall. Yeah, that's the main objective, because we are a distressed community. We can't afford to build another outfall.
Right, because I remember, I remember that time, when we was dealing with this, so, okay.
So, in that process, I've had several meetings with the state concerning that outfall, and I presented a financial package to them to show we're a distressed community, which they understand. But in the same token, they came back to me and Benicia said, well, we need you to put a long-term plan together so we can see what you're doing. So this is the plan, and we've sent it to the state. They've already blessed it. Now we're just trying to make sure by doing the steps that they requested us to do that we can get this funding and get this project off the road. And we began to approve the sewer system around here and the sanitary system, which will draw interested investors into the city because they see we are addressing our infrastructure.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
That's very important for, for us moving forward in the future. Now, one of the other things I had is that now I thought we was kind of monitoring the flows and the rainfall flows with those CSO basins. Now, are we talking about doing something a little different, or is it going to be a little bit more intense?
Okay. He wants to know.
I don't think that we're going to do too many things that are different with monitoring the flows. We are, however, going to install some equipment that will allow the city to monitor those flows remotely and on a more regular basis, which will help the city better manage the flows that are coming through here.
Okay, that's all I have, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Karen.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilman Williams.
First of all, let me apologize for being late. This meeting had really slipped my mind. Jerome, once we start this program, and we're going to start it in 2020, if I understand, how long would it take for this program to be completed?
Well, we're looking at probably 4 to 5 years if we are able to secure the funding for all of it.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, Jerome, what do you need for us to do next?
Pass the resolution, I think. It's on the
Mr. Mayor, are there are no questions from the public?
Okay, let's do that. Questions as it relates to.
Are you following the agenda?
It would be questions related to this presentation that we presented tonight. If the public had any questions, we would answer them now. Other than that, we would need council to adopt a resolution for this project. And then we would send it to the state along with this and the minutes and the notes from this meeting.
Okay, City Clerk, I heard you comment. What do we need to do now as it relates to just getting public comment, public feedback? If the public needs to speak, wants to speak.
Mr. Mayor, however you choose to do, I had it where for it to be, it's under new business and then it will be public participation, but however you choose to do it, it's fine.
Yeah, but this is a,
Yeah, so you can, if there's any, take public comments right now, that's fine.
yes. Okay, Councilman Chisholm, can you please give them the instruction?
Yes. No problem. We are at a public hearing for the CSO basins. That's the only item on our agenda tonight. This is a public hearing. So for the general public, if you joined us by video, please use the raise hand feature to be recognized. If you have dialed in by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand and recognize. You have 1 minute to speak to address the CSO basins for the public hearing. And Mr. Mayor, at this particular time, I'm looking at the participants. We don't have any hands raised yet.
Okay, I'm looking here too. Okay. All right, then, well, let's move on to the business of it. Thank you.
So, wait, I know we're moving on to the business. I'm sorry. Are we closing the public hearing? Or
Yes,
Yes.
let's do,
Okay.
let's have a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing. Steve Chisholm.
Support.
Moved and properly supported. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Chisholm,
Yes.
Councilmember Shaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Councilmember Watley.
Shoot. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Howard. Mayor Pro Tem Howard
Yes.
and Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Mayor, we have 6 days to close the public hearing.
All right. Let's
And
move on to new business.
the item under new business, item number A is consideration and approval of the CSO elimination project and resolution.
What's your pleasure?
So move.
Your support,
Support.
discussion?
I just have one thing, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I think this is a wonderful thing for the city of Inkster. We have not had new infrastructure in quite some time. And I know that it takes money to build a community back up. And thanks to DPS and Carrie and everyone who was involved, thank you. We appreciate it. That's the only thing I have to say. Thanks, Mayor.
All right, sounds good. All right, roll call, please, City Clerk.
Yes, Councilmember Shaw,
Yes.
Councilmember Watley,
Okay, I'm sorry. Was there a motion made to do this? And second, yeah, it was. Okay,
Yes.
yes.
Councilmember Washington,
Yes.
Councilmember Chisholm,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
and Mayor Pro Tem Howard.
Yes.
Mayor, we have 6 yeas.
All right, motion carries. And the next item?
The mayor and council comments.
Any comment, other comments from mayor and council? Okay, hearing none. Motion for adjournment.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Support.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, motion. Please have a good evening. Thank you, Jerome. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, council, for your vote of confidence. And to the viewing audience. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.